When most people imagine a medieval castle, they picture towering stone walls, imposing battlements, and knights in shining armour. The reality, however, was far more complex, and far less glamorous for most who lived within its walls. Castles were not just fortresses, they were homes, administrative centres, and symbols of power. Life inside a castle blended danger, luxury, toil, and strict social hierarchy in ways that can surprise the modern imagination. At the top of the social ladder sat the lord or lady of the castle, whose wealth and authority dictated the daily rhythm of life for everyone below them. For the noble family, life was a mixture of privilege and responsibility. The lord was expected to oversee the management of lands, settle disputes among villagers, collect taxes, and, in times of war, lead his troops into battle. For their part, the lady of the castle managed the household, supervised servants, organised feasts, and often had her own political influence. Their comfort, however, was relative. Medieval castles were cold, drafty, and dark, with only small windows to let in light, and precious little heat beyond the central hearths. Servants and staff formed the backbone of castle life. Their roles were varied and essential. Some worked in the kitchens, preparing meals for hundreds of people. Others cleaned chambers, tended animals, maintained the weapons, or served as messengers. Life as a servant could be grueling. Kitchens were hot, smoky, and full of the constant danger of fire or boiling water, while the stone floors of corridors and chambers were perpetually cold and damp. Yet for many, working in a castle offered relative security compared to village life, and opportunities for advancement were sometimes possible through loyalty and skill. Speaking of kitchens, food in a castle was both abundant and monotonous, depending on one's social standing. The lord's table might feature roasted meats, pies, and imported delicacies, served alongside bread, cheese, and ale. Spices, which were costly and highly valued, were often used to show wealth rather than taste. For servants and lower-ranked staff, the meals were far simpler. Pottages, bread, and occasionally salted meat or fish. Castles had no refrigerators, of course, so much of the food had to be salted, smoked, or otherwise preserved, which meant that fresh fruits and vegetables were seasonal luxuries. Water, too, was a precious commodity. Many castles had wells or cisterns inside their walls, but the supply could be limited, and hygiene was rudimentary at best. Hygiene in castles was a significant challenge. Despite popular myths of medieval filth, some castles had surprisingly sophisticated waste systems, including garderobes, stone toilets that emptied into moats or pits, and drainage channels. However, bathing was rare for most, and shared living quarters often meant that odours, lice, and disease were constant companions. Stone walls, while strong and imposing, retained dampness and cold, making winters harsh and uncomfortable, even for the nobility. Tapestries were hung not just for decoration, but also to insulate rooms, while large hearths provided heat and a central gathering point. Security was a daily concern. Castles were designed for defence, not comfort. High walls, drawbridges, portcullises, and arrow slits were essential features, and their design directly affected daily life. Narrow, spiral staircases forced attackers to move in predictable ways, but for the inhabitants, they could be tiring to navigate, especially when carrying food, water, or supplies. Towers and battlements offered views over the surrounding lands, but life at the top could be exposed to the wind, rain, and the cold of winter. Sieges were a constant threat, and during times of conflict, castle inhabitants endured extreme stress, food shortages, and the ever-present danger of attack. Yet, castles were also centres of culture and ceremony. Lords often hosted feasts, banquets, and tournaments that brought together nobles from across the region. These events were displays of wealth, power, and prestige, and they reinforced social hierarchies. Music, storytelling, and games were common forms of entertainment. Despite the martial and functional nature of castles, the walls echoed with laughter, gossip, and the rhythms of daily life that were far removed from the battlefield. Children in castles had unique experiences shaped by their social status. Noble children were often educated in etiquette, languages, and combat skills. Boys might train as pages and squires from a young age, learning horsemanship, swordplay, and military strategy. Girls were taught household management, sewing, and the responsibilities of running a household, skills essential for their future roles. Children of servants had vastly different lives, often working alongside their parents and performing labour from a very young age. Religion permeated castle life. Most castles had a chapel, however modest, where inhabitants could attend mass, pray, or seek spiritual counsel. Priests or chaplains were employed to oversee religious observances and provide guidance, while religious festivals punctuated the yearly calendar. Even daily routines were shaped by prayer, with bells signalling times for worship, meals, and work. Despite their imposing stone walls, castles were surprisingly social places. Courtyards were full of activity: blacksmiths forging weapons, carpenters repairing doors, and animals roaming the grounds. Markets and fairs might occur in or near castle walls, bringing peasants, merchants, and travellers into contact with the nobility. Messages arrived from distant lands, rumours spread quickly, and the castle often served as a hub of local administration. However, life in a castle was not without fear. Disease spread rapidly in close quarters, and injuries from falls, accidents, or combat were common. Superstition and belief in the supernatural influenced many aspects of daily life. Residents might consult astrologers, carry charms, or follow rituals to ward off bad luck or evil spirits. The ever-present threat of political intrigue or rebellion added another layer of tension for lords and ladies, who had to navigate alliances, rivalries, and power struggles carefully. In many ways, living in a castle was a balancing act between power and vulnerability, comfort and danger, work and ceremony. While the walls offered protection, they also confined inhabitants within a harsh environment of stone, cold, and monotony. Yet within these walls, life was full of structure, purpose, and community. Nobility, servants, soldiers, and children all had their roles to play, contributing to the rhythm of castle life. Ultimately, the medieval castle was far more than a military stronghold. It was a living, breathing ecosystem, reflecting the social hierarchies, values, and daily realities of the Middle Ages. Its grandeur and majesty have survived in stories, films, and ruins, but the true life inside was a mixture of labour, leisure, danger, and adaptation. Living in a castle meant navigating this delicate balance every day, enduring the hardships of medieval life, while enjoying the privileges, protections, and occasional pleasures that the fortress walls provided. From the flickering torchlight in stone corridors to the clang of armour on the training grounds, from the heat of the kitchen to the chill of winter chambers, castle life was vivid, challenging, and remarkably human. It was a world of contrasts: power and vulnerability, wealth and scarcity, celebration, and fear. Understanding what life was truly like inside these stone fortresses helps us appreciate not only the ingenuity of medieval architecture, but also the resilience, creativity, and daily struggles of the people who called them home. Castles were more than monuments of war. They were homes, workplaces, and communities. They shaped the lives of everyone who lived within their walls and influenced the surrounding lands for miles around. Life in a castle was harsh, unpredictable, and often dangerous, yet it was also vibrant, dynamic, and full of stories waiting to be told. A world where history and human experience intersected in stone and fire.